The Charlotte Hornets are awful. So awful, in fact, that Michael Jordan is even considering selling the team. The Hornets have just 10 playoff appearances in 32 full seasons as a franchise, and they've never made it out of the first round. And this season, they're not even close to making the playoffs. They're 27th in win percentage, 27th in points scored per game, 29th in three-point percentage, 27th in free throw percentage, 29th in field goal percentage, and 20th in defensive rating. Based on those rankings, it's obvious why they're one of the worst teams in the NBA this year. But let's take a deep dive into each impact player on the roster to really get to the bottom of the suck. And then we'll offer a solution. But first, let's start with LaMelo Ball. LaMelo's only played 35 games this season due to an injury, and it's now being reported that he's going to sit for the rest of the season for another ankle injury. In his 35 games, he averaged 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists, while shooting 41% from the field, 83% from the free throw line, and 37% from 3 on 10 attempts per game. So he was definitely putting up all-star numbers this year before the injuries. LaMelo was ranked 23rd in shots in the restricted area among all guards, shooting 54% on 4 attempts per game, and he was even 14th in the NBA in drives per game, so he was getting to the rim and converting at a solid clip. He had the potential to be elite in this area, because at 6'7", he's able to see over just about any point guard in the league, and once he drives into the lane, there's only so much you can do. It's essentially the same thing as Thunder guard Josh Giddey. He's top 10 in shots in the non-restricted area because he's so tall and can just rise above his opponents on drives. LaMelo has that exact same potential and skill set, and even has better handles and is more shifty than Giddey, so that makes him an even bigger potential driving threat. And we all know he has that soft touch around the basket, so we wouldn't be surprised to see him become even more of a problem when going to the rim. He showed flashes of becoming a lethal transition scorer as well. He has great hesitation moves, and his ability to stop and go is extremely useful with a full head of steam coming downhill. And just like every other good to elite point guard, LaMelo has a really solid floater. Overall, he just has all of the skills and physical tools to be an elite, efficient scorer in the lane. And while he isn't a high-volume mid-range shooter, he is shooting 45% on a couple attempts. He also has an amazing runner from the mid-range, and he's the only player who does it consistently. But realistically, this isn't really a high-percentage shot, so Ball's further development in the mid-range could really elevate his scoring as a whole. When it comes to three-point shooting, we've been really impressed this season. He's shooting 37% on an insane 10.6 attempts per game. So given the attempts, that's a highly efficient percentage. Damian Lillard is shooting 37% on 11 attempts per game for comparison, so LaMelo is in the same ballpark with Dame time when it comes to shooting. Lillard does take deeper and more difficult shots, but the point remains, it's not bad to be in the same conversation as Damian Lillard. LaMelo shot 39% from 3 last year on 7.5 attempts, so it's looking like he's going to be an efficient volume sniper from 3. And given the Hornets are 29th in three-point percentage, they could definitely use that going into next season. When it comes to playmaking, we all know he's one of the best floor generals in the NBA already, and honestly, he might be the most entertaining passer in the entire NBA. You could easily argue that Tyrese Halliburton and Nikola Jokic take that honor, and we would most likely agree, but LaMelo pulls off flashy passes consistently as well, and that's just the type of facilitator he's always been. He can throw cross-court passes with either hand while being insanely accurate. He can also throw lob passes with either hand, wraparound passes, full-court outlet passes, behind-the-back passes, no-look passes, you name it, he can pull it off effortlessly. And even though he only played 35 games this season, he's still ranked 6th in assists, and he was 9th in assists last year while playing 75 games. So it's pretty clear he's an elite playmaker and facilitator. But now let's talk about his defense, and like many other good offensive players, he struggles defensively. He's a bad on-ball defender and has been since he stepped into the league a few years ago. He gets beaten off the dribble a lot, and that has to do with his poor reaction time and lack of anticipation. He always seems to be a step behind on the defensive end. And the thing is, he has the physical tools to be a good defender, but it's clear he doesn't really focus a lot on that end of the floor. Honestly, Steph Curry might be a better on-ball defender, and that's really saying something. But he does read the passing lanes pretty well. In fact, he averaged 1.6 steals per game in his first 2 seasons in the NBA. And this year, while he's only averaging 1.3, reading the passing lanes is without a doubt his best defensive attribute. Another important piece moving forward is their rookie center Mark Williams. He's averaging 8 points, 6 rebounds, and 1.1 blocks per game in 18 minutes of action. But in his last 7 games, he's averaging over 9 rebounds per game in an increased 23 minutes per game. On offense, he's your typical big man. He's a good screen setter and a borderline elite lob finisher, and that's why he and LaMelo will mesh up fine next season. But on defense is where Mark Williams is most effective. He has an enormous 7'7" wingspan, and he really puts it to use. He has tremendous shot blocking instincts, and he's hardly ever late on rotations. He's a true defensive anchor who will be in the NBA a very long time. But their rim protecting talent doesn't stop there, because 25-year-old Nick Richards is also a really good shot blocker. And that's why the Hornets are actually top 10 in blocks per game, but they're still 21st in points allowed in the paint. But that's not really Mark Williams and Nick Richards' fault, because while they certainly aren't perfect or even really elite defenders, the Hornets are horrific at defending the perimeter. So teams are breaking into the lane, shooting inside shots at will due to there being no resistance out on the perimeter. But if Charlotte somehow manages to get some wing defenders in the future, we still wouldn't be surprised to see them be maybe a top 15 in points allowed in the paint. Moving on, we are actually a little hesitant to mention Terry Rozier and Kelly Oubre, and that's because we're honestly unsure about their future with the Hornets. Yes, they're putting up great numbers, but it's pretty much empty stats. With LaMelo Ball out, they can practically shoot whenever they want, as much as they want, and they're both shooting below 32% from deep, which isn't great. Plus, Rozier's 29 years old and Oubre's 27, so they don't really fit the timeline with LaMelo. But one thing that does fit this timeline is hitting the like button and subscribing if you enjoy our content. We really appreciate it. So now we've gone over the Hornets' problems and we've dived into their young core of LaMelo, Mark Williams, and Nick Richards. But now let's talk about the potential solution to all of their problems: drafting Victor Wembanyama. We know the Hornets are being projected to have the 4th pick, but things could change. And if they were somehow able to get the 7'4" French monster, here's how he could help. First, he would give them a much-needed extra scorer who could assist LaMelo. And he would also be a great pick and pop threat when on the court. Being 7'4", maybe 5, with smooth form from behind the arc is a cheat code. And with LaMelo running the point, that could be special. But on defense is where he could really elevate this team. And we know the Hornets have 2 centers in Richards and Williams, but you could move Victor to power forward and keep Williams at center. It could basically work like Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen with the Cavaliers. Victor is mobile enough to defend out on the perimeter if he needs to, and then he wouldn't have to constantly bang with big centers, which is ideal due to his thin frame. The same thing goes for Evan Mobley. But talking about the Hornets' future is really difficult due to the lack of young potential, because a complete lack of offense and a young core of only LaMelo, Williams, and Richards is definitely not going to be winning you many ball games. Sure, PJ Washington is a solid piece, but he's been in significant trade rumors, and he's gotten worse from 3 every single season while also being just a very average defender. So who knows how long he'll be around for. And when you compare the Hornets' young core to other young cores like the Thunder, who have SGA, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, and Jalen Williams, the Pacers, who have Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner, and Andrew Nembhard, and the Magic, who have Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter, and Cole Anthony, we think you might begin to see why there needs to be major changes in Charlotte. And even if you draft Victor Wembanyama, we still don't see anything really changing due to how poorly the roster is constructed. The Hornets are a long ways off from relevancy. But what do you think? Could Victor Wembanyama turn things around in Charlotte? And what else does Charlotte need to do to right the ship? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.